Brian Robinson at 16. Brian Robinson at 16. You have him at 23. Why are you hating on Brian Robinson, man? What's going on here?
I'm just concerned about the role that this new regime has put him in. So I think Brian Robinson's a very talented pass catcher, and the beat reporters were talking about how good his pass catching was, how juiced up he was in training camp and everything. And then Austin Eckler comes out here and gets a 13% target share, and he's getting high value touches. He's getting red zone carries. He was a top 15 maybe option at some point. I mean, his last weeks before going down against Dallas, 17.3 points, 18.1, 17.6. He had a 9 target, 8 catch game against Philadelphia. Like, I didn't expect it, certainly, but it definitely scares me because Brian Robinson, I'm pulling up his profile right now, but I believe his target share is under 6%. So I was really projecting that to get closer to 3 or to 10%, given that he was at 8% in 2023 and what he showed off. I think I didn't give Austin Eckler enough credit for what he had left in the tank. I think that ankle sprain last year just kind of messed him up more than we thought, but he's very touchdown dependent right now. I believe 60 something percent. I saw this on a tweet, scrolling by, but like 60 something percent of his fantasy production this year has come off of touchdowns. He has 8 touchdowns. Not great, Bob. He's not getting targeted. He has a quarterback that loves to run into the end zone in Jaden Daniels. So not only is he touchdown dependent, but he is, half as likely as a standard bell cow back is to find the end zone if the team reaches the goal line. So these things just scare the bejesus out of me, and they make me think, okay, first year of a new regime, they choose to go out and get Eckler. They choose to use Eckler in a lot of high-value situations for fantasy football. And even when Eckler is not on the field, Robinson is not getting the target share we want. He's not getting the touchdowns consistently that we want, or at least the goal line opportunities. That scares me a lot. I really want him to be in the top 20. I am not convinced. I know Genty as a pick would be ridiculous spending that kind of capital. I would not be surprised if the Commanders spent a 3rd, 4th round pick on a running back. And given this class, if they throw a 3rd, 4th round pick on a guy like, I don't know, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, that could be trouble. That could be a lot of trouble for Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I will admit to you, I mean, he's a 25-year-old running
Plotter.
back.
Let's be honest. He's Najee Harris.
Plotter, I mean, 36 receptions last year.
I
think he's got a little bit more.
He's a between
juice.
the tackles runner.
Yeah. No, I get
he's
it.
Najee Harris. But he just doesn't
25,
catch as much passes.
He's 25 years old. He'll be under contract next year, no matter what. So if they do draft a running back, this is another player that could really see his value go down. And he is just, he's only a 3rd round pick, but we'll see what they do. Well, we'll see. Najee Harris, speaking of plotters, you called Najee Harris a plotter, and you have him at 24. I have him at 32.
He is a plotter. He's a plotter that gets a lot of opportunity.
But he's going to be a free agent because there's no way possible they're picking up his 5th year option, is there?
They're not picking up his 5th year option, but they're gonna give him a contract extension. They're going to decline his 5th year option, and then they're going to sign him to an extension that's more friendly to the team and gives him more long-term security.
So Jaylen Warren will just never see the light of day, even though he's the better running back out of the two of them.
No. Do you like? I just at this point, I don't think I believe that Tomlin is willing to let go. I really don't. And we look at
just loves Najee Harris so much. He's like,
he's getting
3 yards in a cloud of dust. We love you.
14 weighted opportunities per game, 14th among running backs. Team run plays per game, number 2 in the league this year. Yards per route run is number 2 on among running backs on a 10.3% target share. He's number 10 in the league in breakaway runs, 23rd in explosive rating per player profiler, 15th in juke rate. His true yards per carry is still bad, but
Yeah,
The offensive
very
line
bad.
is able to get him. The thing is why it's bad though is because partly the blocking for him has been good. And if Najee is not getting hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he can actually be very effective. Because when he gets into that second level, he is able to break tackles efficiently and break, chunk runs. So I think what he's shown this year, give him one big game in a playoff scenario or something. If he scores twice, something like that, it's going to be. He's been used far too much this year. I think. I don't know. We look at the running backs. We look at Connor getting an extension. I think we're seeing a trend here with how running backs are being treated, and I think Najee Harris continues to be a fringe RB2 for another couple of years.
And I think we've spoken a fair point. I could totally see it happening. But I
get it. We can't go back and forth forever.
There are running backs I prefer over Najee Harris. I just don't want Najee Harris on my dynasty team. Christian McCaffrey. What do we do? Well, I think how I would answer this question is if you have Christian McCaffrey, I don't think you can do anything with him right now. What you do is you wait for the hype to grow leading into next season if he's indeed healthy, if he's deemed healthy. Those dastardly 49ers people over there, Kyle Shanahan twiddling his thumbs, cursing the fantasy industry with not giving us any information on Christian McCaffrey. It could happen again next year. Who knows? But I think you got to hold him, and I'm definitely not trading for him. So my guess is there's probably not a lot of activity in the offseason with Christian McCaffrey trades. But I have him at 27, and that might seem preposterous, but honestly, that's what I'm doing. I don't really want Christian McCaffrey. My plan is on the teams where I have him is to wait for the hype to grow leading into the season and then see what I can get for him, and we'll see. But what say you?
That's pretty much my exact thought. I think I just ended up putting him a little higher because if he does end up being the starting running back, for San Francisco next year, he's going to be extremely valuable. So
yes.
I would imagine that just depending on how the offseason goes, he's certainly not going to go higher, but he'll probably end up closer to 27, 30 by the time the offseason ends. There are some things I want to see happen first before I start getting too crazy.
All right.
Like Caleb Johnson could leapfrog him pretty easily depending on what happens in the draft, for example.
Yeah, like if Brugler has his way and he goes to the Chargers.
That'd be sick.
Hey, we're giving you more than 3 because I wanted to give all of tier 8. So we have Quinshon Judkins, DeAndre Swift at 29, Rachaad White at 30. Man, it might be a little bit too low on Rachaad White. Ramondre Stevenson at 31, Jaylen Warren at 32, Travis Etienne at 33. Why? I might, when the show's, I think Rachaad White might be the one I did the worst job on.
It's tough because he's certainly.
Well, it's like if you're high on.
What does his offense look like when Godwin's healthy next year?
Yeah, if you're high on Bucky, you kind of have to be lower on Rachaad White, don't you?
Yeah, and then RBs. This happened with Devon Achane. RBs like Bucky Irving, who just outkick their coverage in terms of their expected fantasy points. They just overperform, hyperperform all year on a moderate touch count. Those running backs nearly always see an opportunity increase going into year 2. I love Rachaad White. The difference is so easy to spot. It's so easy to spot. Anyway, you can watch your first NFL game and you can watch Bucky Irving versus Rachaad White, and you'll be like, I don't know who that guy is, but they need to get him the ball more. It's incredible. I love Bucky Irving, and that's what's keeping me from pushing Rachaad White up. I think it's his current opportunity alone that's keeping him this high.
And
you want to move him up, but what happens if Bucky takes 10% more of the touches next year?
I think Bucky's better. That's why I
He's
have Bucky
much better, I think.
Yeah, that's why I have Bucky as high as I do, and that's why I have Rachaad White. I guess it's fine. Let us know what you think in the comments. Jaylen Warren, I assume you're thinking he's going to be the backup running back forever in Pittsburgh, and that's why
I do not think he's going to be the starting running back next year in Pittsburgh, no matter what happens. Why Why would they at this point? It's very clear that they don't believe that he can do that, because he would be getting more touches already. If they thought he was so good that there's a chance he's our starting running back next year, why isn't he getting touches right now?
Fair. And I like the whole argument for Jalen Warren was he was getting more targets than Najee Harris, and that's really not the case this year. So
Now, if he is the starting running back, going during the offseason, happily we'll move him up. But again, it's so early in the offseason that like I don't know if I can try and predict like who's going to be starting where. So I do have to take it a little bit based. I'm taking it. I am weighted more towards their talent profile right now than what I think might happen in the next 5 months.
And Travis Etienne, how the mighty have fallen, still clinging to, well, not the top 30, but the top 33 as it turned out, and clinging to tier 8 in our Dynasty RB rankings. Any final thoughts here before we wrap up? Because I think there isn't really much for me to comment on. I have Quinshon Judkins a lot higher than you. I would just prefer him over a lot of these other, veteran running backs in Dynasty just from a value perspective. And we've already talked about the value versus immediate production conversation. And, there's 1,000 ways to rank these people. Like, if we wanted to rank them all like, win now, maybe we should develop a win now rankings versus productive struggle rankings and all this stuff. But
you can just look at my rankings versus Seth's rankings and figure out which one is more geared towards which side of that spectrum, because the viewers already are like, it's probably finding it pretty obvious where each of us lean in terms of our neutral rankings. But that's the hard part about it. It's really hard to just yourself like project 3-4 years into the future for like these dynasty rankings. So that's the beauty of it. That's why it's better when you combine forces.